it's real, right? It's like it's like you think, okay, well, I want to get to whatever this level is, whatever you name it. It doesn't matter, but put a label on this thing that you dream. And then whenever you get there, you're like, okay, and then there's new things that are going to start pushing up against you. The interesting thing, guys, is that when you get here, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're like us, when you get here, you're not even okay with this. You're like, where's the next thing? And it's because we as entrepreneurs, we're literally different, and we enjoy the journey instead of where when we don't celebrate when we get somewhere. We're celebrating inside of the journey. And so like if you can get really into that place where you're kind of partying inside the journey, and then when you get there you're like, whatevs, where's the next thing, right? But don't beat yourself up over that, because I totally did once, and that was like a not great thing. Right. Anyway, so I want to talk about uh the Unstoppable Woman Project.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Okay.
What was the moment where you were like, I'm doing
I'm
this?
so glad you asked this question because this is my heartbeat, right? I mean, I have a lot of
Yeah,
heartbeats,
I
but
know.
this is my heartbeat right now. And that's actually one of the reasons I said the timing of today is really it's symbiotic because of where I'm at with this.
Yeah.
So the Unstoppable Woman Project, it's an umbrella term for me being able to impact and serve women, right? And I'll get into a little bit more about that in 1 second, but I've been a coach for 25 years. So a coach and counselor for 25 years. I've been doing this a very long time. And I think whenever you've been doing anything for a very long time, you take these little moments away and then you come back away. And it's like no matter how many times I got pulled away from the coaching industry, I always come back. And coming back, I always come back to serving women. I've run multiple. My very, very first online coaching program ever was called My First 15, and it was 15 women who I took on a journey of personal development, et cetera, et cetera. So I always come back to women. So the Unstoppable Woman Project was born in February 2019. It was the year I turned 40, and it was coming off of a year of me doing like 2 years, no, 2 years of like intense deep diving, intense journaling, like really like stepping back into myself in a way like, no, not stepping back into myself, stepping back into my next self. Right. And the next version
Yeah.
of me. And so I'm sitting at the airport. We're about to travel. And I'm coming off my 40th birthday. I'm in the best shape of my life. I am like feeling myself. I've just come off of a meeting with the musician Pitbull. He flew me down to Miami, and I'm like, gosh, like this is it. Like this is it. And sitting right there, I was like, I need to give this back to women. I need to give this back to women. And so that day, the Unstoppable Woman Project was born, and I kicked it off. This was 4 years ago. And it's really interesting because it's been running for 4 years, but at no point in time have we actually as a company built it. It's just been running organically. So it's been, my own personal life has had a lot of ups and downs in the last 4 years, and I had to kind of take a back seat to business growth. But Unstoppable is the only thing that did not go away, that did not disappear, and it's taken on a bunch of different iterations in the format of it. Currently, we have an Unstoppable annual membership, so it's a 12-month membership, and it's crazy. I'm telling you right now, Martha, it is the biggest factor in the fact that it's not bigger is people don't believe it's true. Literally, because it used to be a membership for $4,000 for the year. We get 2 coaching calls a week, an online retreat every quarter, daily check-ins, and I dropped it down to $600 for the year. To which my CEO was like, "Wait, what?" He was like, "What? Are you crazy?" And he asked me why. He said to me, "Why?" And I said, "I'm going to tell you why. Because coaching has become something that is only available to the elite. Every coach is out there
Yeah.
trying to charge 25,000, 2,000, whatever dollars. And I was like, I'm going to tell you something. And I'm getting emotional. I was a single mom who lost everything and had to decide, was I going to put food on the table or gas in my car? And I had people help me through. And I vowed I would never forget where I came from. So the
Yeah.
Unstoppable Woman Project, our mantra is no woman gets left behind. The annual membership is a low price because yes, I would be the coach who, if I didn't know anything about business, would charge nothing. But no woman has, and every woman can afford it. Like if a woman came to me and said, Carrie, I can only pay $1.64 a day, I'd be like, cool, I'll send you a link for $1.64 a day. Because I think all women have the right to be given this. So that's where it was born. And this year is the year, like, I always say we're going big, but anybody who's an entrepreneur knows that going big means in 5 years from now is when it's going to look big. I'm kicking off my live tour at the end of the month. I'm going to be making pit stops. I'm coming to Austin. Haven't chatted with you about that yet. We kind of
Yeah,
chatted
girl.
about it. But I'm even as excited about this because we talked a little bit about identity in the conversation around superpowers. My entire life tour, it's called Her Identity. So it's the journey to a woman's self-identity, releasing their past identity, the one that didn't serve them, understanding their current identity, and how to go about creating future identities. Because if we know ourselves, we can do anything. And so Her Identity releases this month, and I could not be more excited about it. Got into an argument with my CEO again because I didn't charging what he wanted me to charge. It's all good. We'll figure it out along the way. Because I am so passionate. Like, I'll be honest, and this is a bold statement. Like, I have this vision of like unstoppable being, like 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 women worldwide standing in their power, embracing themselves, understanding that we are not weak, we are human, and together we rise. And I could go on, but that is the Unstoppable Woman Project. It is born from my own journey and wanting to give it back to other women.
I love it. I love it for a number of reasons. I remember we have a similar story. I think anybody that's had any success has had some rough background. I think a lot of us have. And I remember after my divorce from my first husband, which ended badly, but after my divorce from him, I had nothing. I had no money. I had no skills. I didn't, like I had worked in the restaurant industry for like 14 years or almost 14 years at that point. And I just, I hadn't developed myself to be able to do anything else, even though I knew I wanted to, right? But I remember I had this car that somebody so graciously sold me for like $400 or something. We called him White Lightning. It was like an 80 something or a 90 something probably Ford Tempo, rusted out, the battery would die all the time. I had to charge the battery at my job. I brought it in, charged it while I was working so I could go put it back on the car. I know how to put a battery in. That's the only reason why. And but I remember not having any money, and I remember actually going to the gas station because I had to get to work. And I remember going to the gas station and actually as an adult, taking coins and putting them on the counter and saying like, this is what I've got, and putting $1.17 into my car so I would be able to get to work and go to work. Here's where I want to say that the Unstoppable Woman Project is going to be massive for people, is because the same things that I have done through my own life to be able to turn into a woman that has done the things that I've done are the things Carrie is what is going to walk you through. It's the things I don't necessarily know how to walk people through that, but as she's describing it, that's what Carrie's going to turn you into that woman. She's going to be able to actually help you become her, because I can attest that if I had stayed that person, if I had accepted myself as that person, I didn't beat myself up as that person, but if I had accepted this is who I am,
Yes.
and this is who I'll be, if I had accepted that, then that's who I would have been. Now, instead, what I did is I said, okay, there's more in here. Do I really know what it is? Not necessarily. Am I curious enough to see? Yeah. And that's so Carrie can actually, Carrie, I wish I had had you back then. I feel like, I
Well,
could have
I
done
wouldn't
this
have
so
been as
much
awesome
faster.
back then because I had to grow through it all too.
Like we were probably side by side, like figuring
2008
it
is
out, right?
around the time.
Yes. I love that you've got this for women and that you're able to walk them through it, because that is the thing. When people are like, well, what did you do to become blah, blah, blah? I decided. Like, that's what I say to people is I decided, but that's not enough to tell people. You need to show people what's going on in their mind. You need to show them what is not true and what is true and all, like, it's not just I decided. That's all that I can say. But like, Carrie, you are, I see that 100,000 women for you.
Thank
I
you.
see that too. Like, I join you unified in that vision of those 100,000 women who are completely changing the world around them, the communities, their families, their kids. Our kids, guys, are looking to us
Yeah.
to see what's available for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that didn't hit you sideways, then you need to listen again, because that is really what it's all about. But when we change, everybody changes, because that's the natural state of a woman in our
100%.
community.
First of all, I could not agree more. And you said like it's interesting because you said like I see the 100,000 women for you, and the second I heard my voice say not for me, for us. Because
Yeah, I
and it's
also heard
so
that in my
this is one of the interesting things about this world right now we're living in, social media wise, marketing wise, coaching. Don't even get me on my coaching soapbox. Like everybody thinks they're a coach right now. And I just posted this last week. You don't go into coaching to make money. You go into coaching to be a coach. You make money from being a coach. I was a coach first, I made money afterwards. And it's so interesting because in this world nowadays where coaching is so pervasive online and you can't post about it, talk about it, Facebook just doesn't like any of it, right? I don't look at that as like, oh my God, I can't stand the algorithm. I look at that as like, you just watch me because I'll find a way. Because it's not about me. And people, what's interesting is that we become so cynical in this coaching space nowadays. The buyers, and I don't blame the buyers out there, like, who do I trust? Who do I not trust? But we've become so cynical that, like, when I say, like, this is really not for me, this is for us, people, unless they hear me talking, they don't necessarily feel that and believe that. And that's okay. That's an obstacle to overcome. Like when you have a vision, when you have a dream, when you have something that you want, there's nothing that's going to get in your way. And Unstoppable is going to go through ups and downs and bumps and bruises, but it is the thing I would do if I had bajillions of dollars and never had to work a day in my life. It's the one thing I would do, right? Because it's not about me. And so I encourage all the women and men listening, because it's not just about men, but like the women listening. The thing that I really want women to know is that you don't need to have all the answers. You're not going to have all the answers. And that's the reason I built the Unstoppable Woman Project, because you don't have to go out it alone. You don't have to figure it all out by yourself. I always tell the ladies inside the program, if you just show up, it will work. That's it. Let me lead you. Let me guide you. I know the way. And, we had our first Herdenity retreat back in whatever last month was, April. We had our first Herdenity retreat, and one of the women who attended you could tell she was just super closed off, super afraid of being vulnerable. She sent me a message and her transformation that week, because if you've known personal transformation, you can see it happening in the person. She sent me a message last week that her husband said to her, or was talking to someone else, and her husband said she left to go on this retreat and came back a different woman. I came back a different woman after 3 days. And I just think about the pain that's the thing, like the pain that women are sitting in, and you don't have to be there. And that's why Unstoppable is what it is. Because I just want to heal the world, as I told my grandpa.
As I told my grandpa. I love it. I love it. This is I and yes, dudes, if you're listening, this whole concept is for you as well, because there is a whole movement in the world. Oh, I've got thumbs up. If you're watching us on video, oh my gosh, I have fireworks. Okay, so if you're not watching us on video, you need to go to like the YouTube link or something and check that out because A, like we're fun to watch on video, but B, some fun stuff just happened on my camera. But anywho, men, there's things going on in the world where men have to feel or are being told or made to feel like they're not allowed to express emotion, like they're not allowed to be themselves, and instead they have to be this, sort of like this put together buttoned up version of themselves, which, let's just call it, none of us really are. None of us are buttoned up, none of us have it all together. It's just a bunch of pretending that happens out in the world, right? And it's not fair to you guys either. Like, this isn't just a women's thing where we're saying this for women. Guys, you don't have it easy either. It's nobody has had it easy. We've all been told that we have to perform or be a certain X, Y, and Z in order to be accepted, and all of it's BS. Let's just call it.
Totally.
Do you want to
I
expand
mean,
on
I,
that
I
one?
couldn't agree more with you. I'll just say this on that note. I was at an event last week that was quite honestly one of the most amazing. I'm going to give a shout out to Know Women. It's an amazing network of women. It was just so incredible. And there was somebody on stage, Dr. Jen Welter, who is the first ever NFL first ever female football coach in NFL history. And I love what she said on stage. She said, I am all for women, but I am not a woman's woman at the expense of men. And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I couldn't put it better because we don't have to expense anybody. If we have a heartbeat,
Yeah.
we're human, and that's all that matters. That's it. Like,
That.
that's it. Nobody, and I don't love getting into that, like, whose challenge is bigger than whose challenge, because the truth of the matter is everybody's challenge is their challenge. It's what they know.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of default to seeing, I imagine you're probably the same way, Carrie. I don't think we've ever talked about this before. Oh, no, we have. I remember sitting on the couch in
In LA?
LA. Yeah, talking about this. What was that? Bourbon Room?
Yes.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
that's such a great venue, by the
Yeah.
way. Anywho, shout out to Steve Sims and
Right?
his speakeasies. That's where we
We met.
hung out last time. But I default to seeing people in general as their 4-year-old version of themselves. I default to seeing the kid in people, and it opens my heart to them in a way that seeing them as the adult that's being, sort of like showing up in front of me. If I look at them at the kid version of themselves, it's like, it's so much easier to see the human in people rather than what they feel like they have to be in front of
100%.
people, which is pretty unsafe.
Yeah.
Like, it's, most people feel unsafe in
And
general.
I also
But
add to that because one of my very favorite things about you is just how real you are, which is, I think, why we jive the way we do so much, among other things. But I also want to add that that doesn't make me, and I know I can say the same for you. I believe I can say the same for you as a presumption. That doesn't mean that I don't challenge sometimes with finding compassion for people. Because although I can
yes.
see people in their human form, I'm still human, which means I still can get hurt. I can still get challenged. And so for me, the goal for me is to come back to compassion, right? Like, and I don't know if you and I have ever spoken about this, but you're going to love this. I know you will. I have a tattoo on my leg, and I got this tattoo in 2017. I read this quote, and this quote said, have a goal so big that you will surely fail unless God or divine forces intervenes. And I was like, oof, like
Mm,
it just hit, right? I went to the tattoo shop that afternoon. I got it tattooed on my leg because I just knew inherently it was my me, right? But then a year later,
yeah.
Brian and I were that's my husband, we're having a conversation about it. And he's like, I'm just curious. He's like, you're so attached to this quote. He's like, what are those goals? And I realized I had never actually asked myself what those goals were specifically, but they came to me so effortlessly. So and this is, you can call this goals, you can call this core values. This is what I taught like 2 weeks ago on one of my lessons. My ultimate life goals, my core values in life are happiness, impact, and mastery. Ironically, they spell the acronym HIM, which tie me into the divinity of my tattoo. But When all else fails for me, I choose him. I choose happiness, I choose impact, and I choose mastery. And so when I wake up on a given day and I'm frustrated with someone, I have these umbrella goals. I have this compass in my life. Is this ultimate mastery? Am I feeling happy? And who am I impacting with this? And I come back to that compass and I say to myself, okay, what do I need to do to master this? Because when I die, like I did a presentation once. I spoke once to a room of people, and I put my tombstone up on the wall. And my
Oh
tombstone
my word.
said, "Here lies Carrie Campbell, who left a legacy in her life, her love, and her impact." And it's all about that happiness, impact, and mastery. Because let me tell you, everybody listening, you're not getting out of bed in the morning for the six pack abs or the six-figure bank account or the clean house or the house. You're not. And so, unless or until we go to that deeper level and ask ourselves that really big question, what is my purpose? And the oddity of that conversation is my purpose is mine. I'm going to die the most happy. I always say, like, I won't swear on your podcast. I'm going to die the most enlightened MFer, is what I always say to people, because I constantly will raise the bar. No challenge is going to come my way that I don't have this compass to say, okay, you better like man up, woman up. You got to grow, right? And if you don't have that, if you don't know what your purpose is for why your feet are hitting the ground in the morning, you're always going to get hit the skids. Doesn't mean I don't have hard days, but I've always got something to come back and ask myself, how am I choosing him today? And so I think we all need that to drive us forward. And I know I'm off track, but that comes back to the comment about like when someone frustrates me or someone challenges me or I go through a real human situation, I come back to that and ask myself, okay, what do I need to do to master it? And that's how I grow. And that's what everybody needs to practice themselves. I know a lot more work than it sounds.